What's up, guys? Today we have the Yamaha RT. I just want to give you guys an update. I've got a little bit over 500 miles on the bike, and so it's time to get in front of the camera again and give you kind of an update as to how my experience has been with the bike up to this point. So first things first, one of the things that most people are interested in is this extra battery. I now have 4 batteries across this bike and my cross four. I ended up receiving all of my extra batteries that were supposed to come to me over the last month or two, I believe it was. These came in and I think I posted the first one. I didn't post the second one, but now I have all of my batteries for this. And a lot of people have been asking me how it is that I got my extra battery. And what happened for me was I ordered the bikes. They came to a dealership. I talked to the dealership about the promo that they had when I bought the bike. They submitted for me for the promo. I waited, I don't know, it's been 5 months seemingly, something like that. I've been riding the bikes for quite a while, and these batteries just showed up on my doorstep. There was one package for a little thing that pops on the end of this like that, and then the other package was for the battery itself. And those are pretty quick to install, but it definitely does. The battery comes like this, and then you have this little apparatus that you put on the end of it, and you just have a little Allen key that you can use to be able to tighten that down, and everything's good to go. I haven't tested this battery, obviously, as you can see, but I did test my additional battery that I got for on the cross court, and I didn't have any issues with it. It seems to be working great. I probably need to test this one to see if I have any issues with it. But other than that, I don't really have any new things that have happened as far as Yamaha's, my experience with Yamaha. I have installed some additional parts on the bike. And so the first thing I would mention that I have installed was these little pedals. They're from Look. They were off my road bike and they connect to these shoes that I have. And so now I end up using these clip-in pedals, and I think it creates a little bit more efficiency. So it's a bit easier for me to ride at a constantly fast pace and keep my heart rate up. I can still do that on my cross cord, but I would say being locked in allows me to be a little bit more confident about really having a high cadence on this bike. And if you watch my other video, I mentioned it. I actually end up riding this bike much faster, and for some reason, my heart rate is always higher on this bike, even if I'm just doing a chill ride. I don't know why that is. I think potentially it's because of the seating position, and maybe I'm just a little bit more forward, and I don't know. I guess that makes a difference in the way that you would ride and your heart rate and just the overall feel of the bike. Not really sure there. But yeah, so I've got these pedals that I upgraded. Another thing that I did since then was I put a kickstand on it. I don't know if you can notice it here, but I added this kickstand to it. It's not a straightforward install. I ordered this off of Amazon. The kickstand works. You have to make sure you pay attention to the width of this right here. They're like, I don't know, two different ones. There's a wider one and a thinner one. If you guys want that detail, I can add it. But essentially, when I purchased this, the width of it was correct. The bolts lined up, but you have to pass this bolt through, and then you have to have like a nut on the back end of it to be able to fasten this to the frame. And so I did have an issue with this initially in being able to attach this because the bolts that it came with were too short to be able to fit all the way through and then bolt down. So I ended up having to get some different ones from Home Depot. I put them in and they seem to be working just fine. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of additions to the bike. I did add this strap. I think I mentioned that on my cross-core video, but I added this strap so that I could avoid that battery tray from coming open. Originally, I used zip ties, but then I realized I potentially wanted to change the battery or pull the battery out to put this battery in if I ever go on a long trip. And so I put this rubber strap from Night Eyes. It's, I think, 18 inches. And so that has prevented that tray from coming open. I would like to say that it also got rid of the issue that I was having with the bike going dead. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I posted a video a while back where I mentioned that this bike is possibly not good for inclement weather. I rode it one day when it was raining, and I thought maybe I got water in the system and it started causing it to shut down. But I don't think it was a result of the rain. I think I've ridden it an additional time in the rain. I didn't have any issues with the bike shutting down. I think potentially the problem that I have is the battery coming loose. Even though this is closed and this doesn't pop open anymore, the battery just happens to, I guess, jostle loose. One time it happened to me whenever I was really shimmying the bike back and forth, trying to gain a lot of speed. And so I ended up having to turn the bike on and off again in order to get it to, give me assistance. Otherwise, I would have to ride it without assistance. And that's happened to me, if I had to say, as of late, how often the bike turns off, I would say probably every third ride, I end up having the bike at some point turn off on me. It's not ideal. I don't know if this is an issue with this specific bike or if it's an issue across these bikes. I have seen people comment on my videos that say they have the exact same issue. The thing that I found that helps get around that problem is to put the bike in automatic mode. And if it shuts off and you turn it back on, you put it in automatic mode, it seems to stay on. But if I put it on like Eco or Eco Plus, then it won't do that. It'll shut down after another few minutes of riding. I only one time have I put it to where I put it in automatic mode and it wouldn't stay on. Otherwise, automatic mode has worked for me pretty well. Based off that, my advice would be to consider running in auto mode all the time. The issue with that for me personally is I want to actually like a good workout out of it. And sometimes when I turn the bike all the way up to fully automatic, I have to be on a road that's, 30 miles an hour speed limit so that I can carry that amount of speed consistently. And not everybody has a road to be able to carry that kind of speed and a high cadence. So what typically would happen is if you were on a 25-mile-an-hour road or a neighborhood road or something like that, the bike would be giving you so much assistance that you're not really getting a good workout. But yeah, that's about it. As far as my 500-mile update on this bike, I haven't had any problems other than I did try to install some fenders on it. I believe they were Cannondale fenders from REI. Don't quote me on that name. I believe that was the brand, but I could be wrong. They were 45 millimeter. I think it was like 650B 45 millimeter compatible fenders, and I put them on, and I didn't have any issues. It actually worked really well. It fastened here, and I think it fastened here, and they fit. There was no issue with the fit. I didn't have it rubbing on anything whenever I would just have the bike sitting still. And if I rode the bike slowly, they did their job. Unfortunately, what I found was when I installed those fenders and I was in a high wind or high speed environment, the bike would tend to, or the fenders would tend to shimmy a little bit. And when they shimmied, they would rub the tire or just make like additional noises. And I just didn't like riding the bike and having those noises, those additional noises. I know there have been people who have mentioned the front end makes noises when you ride, and it's like a clicking noise. It doesn't happen often to me anymore. It did happen to me initially in the beginning. I don't pay attention to it as much anymore. I just turn up the volume on my headphones and I keep going. But I don't notice that ticking nearly as much as I did in the beginning of riding the bike. Any other issues that I have? One thing, it's a minor annoyance. It doesn't bother me, but I often find myself like on the seat and, I'm trying to judge like whether the height is accurate or not, or the best, most efficient for my riding. And sometimes with this suspension seat, I find myself it coming down a little bit. And so I'm not in the optimal position that I would say as far as efficiency for my legs. But, if I swap this out for a solid post, I might at that point be a little bit less comfortable on bumps and things. So I would say it's a pretty good trade-off. I'm going to keep it on there. I don't plan to do any adjustments to this bike from here on out. I thought I wanted to do fenders on it. I thought I wanted to do saddlebags, or not saddlebags, but like panniers and all that stuff, and make this like a long trek bike. Unfortunately, as a result of the bike turning off more often than not and only really working at that point in auto mode, um, I don't want to take the bike on long trips in auto, and I don't want to ride the bike in lower assist settings very far away from my home because I don't want to get stranded. And so I'm most likely the way I'm going to ride this bike is around my house like a road bike, and I'm just going to put it in assist level, eco, maybe standard. Um, and worst case scenario, I put it in auto and I just ride the bike as fast as I can on 30 to 35-mile-an-hour roads and maintain like a 140 to 150 heart rate for 45 minutes and get the exercise out of it that way and the miles out of the bike that way. It works fantastically that way. And it doesn't always happen to where the battery or the bike goes dead, right? Sometimes I ride it and I have no issue, but I just don't know when it's going to happen. And I don't want to put myself in an environment where I go 50 miles out, turn around, come back, and the bike turns off. And then I got to figure out what I'm going to do. That's not something I want to worry about when I'm riding. And it's just it's not a good experience for a ride in general. So I'm pretty much going to end up riding this bike only locally as a road bike and keep it in the higher settings and hope that it doesn't continue to turn off. I might consider taking it to the Yamaha dealership to see if I can get something fixed on it. I haven't considered whether it's something that would be fixed under warranty or not. I get the feeling that what it is, the battery coming loose, and I need to just make some kind of shim in order to hold that battery in place. But I haven't been able to research that and do that. So I'm giving you guys the stock setup opinion, right? Experience. And this is my experience thus far. It's a great bike. It moves really fast. It's definitely worth the price that I paid for it, especially with this additional battery. But I will say it's a little disheartening now that I've had it for about 6 months and I put 500 plus miles on it, and I still have the bike shutting off midway through a ride because I'll be riding, I'll be in the zone, I'll be having a good time, and then all of a sudden I look down and my screen is blank. I turn it back on, I have to put it back in auto, and that's not the end of the world, but it just ends up really impacting the way that I ride the bike and the way that I get exercise with the bike. Because that's mainly why I bought this bike, was to get exercise with it. And it does work. I do get exercise with this bike. Contrary to what people might believe, I actually burn more calories on this bike than I do on my Crosscore, on my Cirrus X, which is a regular bike. This bike, I burn more calories on it than I do on any other bike. So I like it for that. I end up having a much higher heart rate for the 45-minute period that I ride this bike, regardless of whether it turns off or turns on. So if I look at it that way and I say over the long term, was $1,600 worth the health benefits that I'm going to gain from having this bike and just the exhilaration of being able to ride it and it being that fast? Definitely. That being said, if you bought this bike and you were hoping to do long treks or something like that, just know that I have ran into this issue and other people seemingly have ran into this issue as well. And if you were going to use this as a prop travel bike and you were going to go, somewhere that's a little, a path less traveled, you may have additional things to worry about in the bike turning off and maybe potentially not having the range you need because you have to turn it all the way to auto to be able to get the bike to stay on, therefore giving you less range. And in my experience, I think I got like 75 or 80 miles whenever it was an eco. And I believe if I put it in auto, that's like 30 miles. And that's a huge difference between the two. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you guys like this video, give me a like. If you want to see more content related to this bike or any of the other bikes that I have in the garage, consider subscribing. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks.